So what's up, Headspacers? Vijay, the brother from the ancient mother. You're watching the Headspace, Africa's most poignant hip-hop channel. Africa's most poignant hip-hop podcast. Just, goddamn it, we're just the best. Now, if you're watching this for the first time, what we do is we focus on, engage with, talk about, profile, and ultimately celebrate the journey of this beautiful culture that is hip-hop on this continent. So if you like those kinds of views and news and truths and untruths, then please subscribe to us and make this happen, make us pop. Talk to us. It's always an engagement, and as I present these ideas to you, I'm not trying to plaster any ideals of absolutism. I'm simply just fucking around and digging deep into the subconscious of where we are with hip-hop as a continent, and possibly hoping to spark a conversation with you who says they love hip-hop enough to be here watching me. Now, I want to review a project by a South African rapper who is a lot of things most people tend to fight. Now, the thing about hip-hop and the element that is rap is that there's this strong tendency that a lot of people have to assume that hip-hop is, well, black culture. There's a fight around the fact that quote-unquote white people even really a part of their culture, or are they, in the words of the white rapper Macklemore, guests? It's been an interesting topic, and I want to talk about Jack Parow as a threat to tie into Macklemore, Eminem, and any other quote-unquote, I say quote-unquote for a reason, because if you've watched any of our previous episodes that try to engage with this idea of the black and the white person, you'll know that the approach is to understand that these are not inherent things we are. These are boxes that were created because one needed the other. There was a point in history where the people whose ancestry came from Europe in their pursuit of asserting their culture above everything else defined themselves as the white in order for that which doesn't fit into the category of what they are to be defined as the black. Therefore, when we're talking about blackness, we're not talking about the tone of skin. We're not talking about features. We're not talking about culture even. We're really talking about an expression that seeks to limit an ideology. And now this ideology has festered itself so deep that we equate it with who we are as a response through movements like black consciousness, which was understandable because when you're trying to make people grow within the context of something which was meant to limit them, one of the most powerful tools is to redefine it. So for people like Bantu Stephen Biko, the important thing was to take the very shackles that were put on us and try to find a way to redesign what they can be. Whether or not that's possible is another question. But I create this preamble not like as a cautionary warning before I actually go into it, but as an important kind of guideline as to how to understand what I'm about to talk about. Because when you see Jack Parow as a white guy, a lot is going to prevent you from actually appreciating his music. Because the common dominant understanding is because hip-hop is supposedly black and white people are supposedly aliens to it, whiteness in hip-hop is an intrusion. Whiteness in hip-hop is, at the very most, tolerated but still really unwelcome. And whether or not that is the case is something I really want us to engage with, using Jack Parow as well, a case study. Jack Parow, coming from Durbanville, Western Cape, that's Cape Town for those who don't know, is an artist whose origins kind of feel eerily phony and kind of comically gimmicky, because he came with Cooler Than Eka, which kind of blasted its way into the radio waves of the then kind of booming South African pop culture in a country that is still very much culturally fragmented but pretends like we're all one when we have a bottle of our favorite beer and we watch rugby, which isn't the case because we are so separated as a people that it's not even funny. The fabric of South African society is defined by separation till this day. The only thing that apartheid did was, well, in the words of Sizwe Mpofu Walsh, who kind of echoes what a lot of scholars have said, apartheid didn't die, it simply became corporate. And this is what has happened. We live in a society that has a subliminal edge that still calls forth the same racist overtones. So when black South Africans in particular saw Jack Parow, a lot of us were really just kind of dismayed, maybe slightly amused, but nobody actually took him seriously other than the people who he supposedly comes from. White people. Whiteness. Now this idea of coming from whiteness and actually being white, coming from blackness and actually being black, is an important thing to talk about. Because again, you are not black. You have been blacked. It's something that has limited your capacity. But we do define the culture that has come out of that as black culture, as an homage to breaking the chains of this very same term. So if, in the very same sense, if we can understand that blackness was meant to trigger us into death, and yet through this very same death we can use it to kill the very same whiteness which needs a black to survive, then we can understand that you aren't born white, you choose it. So even if people's skin color is pale and they come from privilege and they have names like Vikas and Yanni, they are not white because of where they were born. They're white because they still perpetuate this idea. They're white because they think this is what they really are instead of something that they were really socialized into. So I want to put the link in the description to the Costa Teach episode we did, because Costa was born into whiteness but understood what it was. Therefore, he was able to operate outside of it, being a quote-unquote white person. And I question that. Are you truly white if you have seen that it is a thing to break out of? Or are you simply just white? It's a murky, murky limit. And so Jack Parow comes into the stage kind of like as an Afrikaans mascot for what rap could be in a kind of Buddha way. And this kind of convolutes with humor. And a lot of the times when artists introduce themselves like Jack Parow did, wearing exaggeratedly long caps and leopard print mishmatched with different kinds of weird styles of dressing, eccentric at the very most, there's a tendency to doubt whether or not they take you seriously as the person, or even if they take themselves seriously. And as a result, the art is not taken seriously. But in Jack Parow's case, because he represents a people who feel marginalized, a people who feel negated, and I'll be honest with you, a people who feel threatened, he represents something that needs to be protected. And Jack Parow kind of speaks to this universe that is insular, that we only ever see on CakeNet if we ever watch it. It speaks to the fact that South Africa seems to have two pop cultures, even till this day. A black one and a white one. You have white festivals and you have black festivals. You have white artists and black artists who absolutely hardly ever interact with each other unless it's for some kind of cheesy crossover thing that they're doing to pander to each other's audiences. And this is the actual real problem that I think Jack Parow is a symptom of. And I think an unknowing symptom of. Jack Parow doesn't understand the intricate politics of the country he operates in deep enough to question that. Therefore, his projects always just play at the comfort of what it's like to be an Afrikaans person, a Boer person, quote unquote, and a white person in South Africa, and the kind of mundane, everyday reality of a pot-smoking, hip-hop loving Boer guy. So as a result, it doesn't speak beyond anything that makes transformation happen. It sits very comfortably as a kind of a decoy to whatever is actually happening in the country. And this is not to criticize Parow. Again, he's not aware of this. So I'm here to talk about him as the individual. His latest project, because there's a lot, he's a prolific artist whose consistency, as I said, is a direct result that he's Afrikaans' Afrikaans people's great white hope at rap music, because there's a lot of Boer people who love rap, and the fact that they might love rap, but there's a challenge with the faces that it usually comes in. And this is the reality of how Jack Parow becomes the perfect symbol, because he's able to make everybody dance, but he's not black. And so because of that, he doesn't attend to the subtle problems that exist in the fact that as South Africans, we live around each other, but we don't really live together. So his latest album, the Evangelie Van Goeie Tye, loosely translated into the Gospel of Good Times, is really an artist who uses chirpy keys that are contrasted with grungy kicks. Conceptually, he's exercising his inner darkness with hyper positivity. Jack Parow went through a lot, and this project is really a personal expression of how he coped through it. So let's actually go into the project and look at what he's doing this time around. As the title insinuates, it kind of opens up with this very hilarious hymn about not judging people who you do not understand harshly. Literally says, don't judge those a biki different, try to get a biki with it. And I like that, because it kind of says Parow himself is asking what the limitations of what he knows are. He's trying to arouse the comfort. He's trying to say, hey, ek weet, ek is 'n boer. A lot of what my life is about is socially comfortable. Even though I have issues internally like every other human being, the politics that I am visibly defined under is one that is, for the most part, largely more peaceful than the violent inner turmoil of black life. Parow is a willing participant in a dialogue, but I don't think he really understands how to make this conversation happen. He's offering his heart, he's offering his soul through a project that says that he knows of his own privilege, but he's trying to understand how to break out of it. So be patient with him, and at the very most, be empathetic. And I think it's important as the listener to understand an artist in what they're trying to do, especially if you're trying to critique them. So Parow goes into the project, and it's telling through singles like, you know, Dimona, you know, which talks really to, I hope I pronounced that right, demons basically. Jack Parow is showing us that even though his answer to his depression is just be happier by any means necessary, he is aware that the terms of happiness aren't the same for all people, because we're not all dealt the same cards. And I think he tries to address this on many songs. On songs like Role Model, there's a kind of energetic thread that really, to be honest with you, pulsates to this whole project. This whole project just feels like one man's firm dedication to just making the world a happier place. But it's done from a sense of naivete, and it's done from a sense of really not knowing the intricacies of how to make that happen. So it's admirable. At the very most, it's honorable. But is it real? Does it feel real? So I want to say that sometimes the hyper-positive subject matter gets so alienating from actual life that it positions him as a caricature. He doesn't become a real person. He's still the guy that feels like a cartoon character. He still plays raps in ways that kind of feel wackier than they should be. His emotional range is always trying to become larger than life, never really fitting in life, if you know what I mean. So as a result, a lot of the music loses authenticity. It loses integrity because it places itself in this carnivalesque place that always sounds like a perpetual circus of the inner mind. And I don't think anybody wants to be in a circus all the time. There's a moment in which the outrageousness, the surrealism is cute. It's even endearing. But real life calls us to moments that are silent, moments that feel a little bit more alleviating and calmer. And this isn't reflective in this project. Everything is just it's just so loud and booming and roadshowy. And I guess Parow knows his audience and he knows where his money is at, but it comes at the cost of making his music potentially more transformative, more real, more relatable, especially to people beyond the Afrikaans bracket, to people who really don't know who Kurt Darren or Folk of Polisikar or Karen Zoid is, to people who might not ever watch Cakenet, to people who only introduction to Afrikaans culture is Vet Koek Palace. I'm revealing my age. But this is what he is. He's an expression of the Afrikaner, the young Afrikaner imagination at their own place in South Africa. And that's all good and fair because this is what he is. But what he is also a symbol of disruption to many who exist outside of that. So musically speaking, it's an album that is made for the purposes of inspiring motivation. I mean, this is the kind of album that feels natural when you're listening to it in headphones and on a treadmill or working out. It's an album for trying to push yourself to the best version of yourself, and it's always boom boom, cheeky cheeky, loud and proud. And I think it's all great to have music that attempts to inspire, but Parow's main challenge is that the capacity of his ideas of inspiration just fit into a mold that doesn't acknowledge the importance of the music reflecting a darker tone. It's important to have songs that slow us down a bit because we can't always be in a rush to be better, because that very same rush to feel good can be the thing that leads us to feel worse. So I think at Parow's musical placebo at happiness will only work in your body if you acknowledge the dark with the light. So ultimately I want to give it sonically, culturally, technically, through his approach, through his consistency as an artist, because this album is not really a deviation from anything he's done before. It's probably his most intimate kind of engagement with the audience, but it's still Jack Parrowing to Jack Parowers. Therefore, it doesn't speak to anything beyond that. I mean, that could be fine. He's not an artist who's trying to do that, but I think if he was, he'd be more important to the rest of the country. But now all he really is a glorified rap mascot for Afrikaans people, and he galvanizes the segmentation by working with artists in ways that don't really speak to anything further than comfort. But shout out to Jack Parow for being the kind of thing that we can curiously look at, ponder at, try to engage with, and ultimately maybe admire to a point where we are all just trying to feel good. But then when we admire each other, we enter into a place where there's room to see how we are the same, only if we acknowledge how we are different. And I think Jack Parow's music acknowledges the sameness of life, but really looks at the differences, because the differences, especially in a country and in a continent like Africa and in a country like South Africa, is a tricky thing for an artist who's not willing to be informed and transformed to do. So the rating that I give it is a 5 out of 10. For me, it's average Parow doing average Parow in ways that this time around kind of attempt to speak to the massive depression that must be happening in the midst of Afrikaans people, Afrikaners, as it happens to everybody else. I want to say one last super hyper-political thing. The word Afrikaner means African. So really, I'm an Afrikaner. And if you live on the continent, you're an Afrikaner. And I don't think Jack Parow understands that kind of definition of Afrikaner to the fullest. Because Afrikanerness is not two-piece khaki wearing Eugene Telebranche eerily, you know, haunting apartheid memory. There's a bigger identity that I think even the people that call themselves Afrikaans don't understand. You're not African just because you live on the land. You're African because you understand that it takes a certain kind of virtue system to sustain and live around other people in the land. So I think anybody who doesn't acknowledge where Africa has been and what Africa is becoming can't truly be called Afrikaner. So yeah, like it's an Afrikaner. Jack Parow is an interesting Afrikaner, and the headspace is, how do you say the most poignant? I'll learn how to say that in Afrikaans for the next album review I do of an Afrikaans-centered rapper. But for now, engage with me, talk to me. I wish an Afrikaner would come into the comment section and be on some yay us da 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 please, because I am simply trying to express, to engage, and to understand things I might not understand well. But the fundamental thing I do with each and every artist is get a sense of who they are, what they're trying to do with their art, and how this latest theme in their artistic journey ties into the rest of the world, and whether or not they're able to hit a bullseye into their own personal vision as an artist, and how that translates into the general culture of where we are as a people. So I think Jack Parow is trying to be more than a Buddha artist, but he's not doing a good job at it.